If you have piercings, you know how important it is to know your jewelry measurements so you can shop for new pieces. Hi, I'm Rebecca with Bodyartforms. I'll be showing you how to measure the most common types of body jewelry. I'll go over rings, plugs, and straight jewelry. While the easiest way to measure your jewelry is using calipers like this one, we know not everyone has one, so we'll show you how to measure your jewelry using the handy gauge card that comes with every Bodyartforms order. If you don't have one, you can find a printable version on our site. Let's start with plugs or tunnels. The two measurements you need to know are the gauge and wearable length. The gauge refers to the thickness of the plug across the middle. These round markings on the side of the card are common gauge sizes in inches and millimeters. To measure your plug, put the plug behind the card and line it up against these markings until you find the one that fits. So this plug is 5/8 of an inch or 16 millimeters. Now, the wearable area. It'll be the area that goes through your piercing. For a single flare plug, you'll measure straight across the side of the plug between where one flare starts and where the O-ring sits. Either using the inches or millimeters on the gauge card, line up your plug to measure. So this one has an 8.5 millimeter wearable area. If you have a double flare plug like this one, you'll measure straight across between the flares. You'll line up your plug in the same way like this. The wearable area for this piece is 7 millimeters. Let's move on to rings. This will include clicker rings, seamless rings, segment rings, and captive bead rings. Pretty much anything that is circle-shaped body jewelry. For this type of jewelry, you'll need to know the gauge and diameter. The gauge will be the thickness of the ring. Again, use the rounded markings on the gauge card to measure the gauge. Put the ring behind the card and line it up to the corresponding gauge markings. This is an 8-gauge ring. To measure the diameter, measure directly across the inside center of the ring. Use the rulers on the gauge to measure the diameter. Put the ring on top of the gauge card and line up the inside starting at 0. This one has a 1/2 inch diameter. If you have a circular type shaped jewelry, even if the circle doesn't completely close like circular barbells and nose hoops, the gauge is measured the same way as rings. And the diameter is measured across the jewelry at its widest point. Remember to always measure the inside of the jewelry and not to include the ring itself. Put the jewelry on top of the gauge card and line up the inside edge starting at 0. This circular barbell has a 1/2 inch diameter. Now let's measure this nose hoop. It has a 5/16 diameter. Now let's measure curved barbells. This includes regular curved barbells and belly ring jewelry that has a curved barbell shape. The gauge will be the thickness of the ring. Use the markings on the gauge card to measure the gauge. Put the ring behind the card and line it up to the corresponding gauge marking. This is a 6-gauge curved barbell. To measure the length of the curved barbell, you'll measure directly across the post between the ends. Do not include the ends. Place the jewelry on top of the gauge card and line up the inside at 0. This one measures 3/4 of an inch. Now let's measure straight body jewelry. This will include labrettes and straight barbells. The gauge is the thickness of the post or the bar itself. To measure the gauge, put the jewelry behind the gauge card and line up the jewelry with the marking that fits. This labrette is 14 gauge. Now for the length, measure directly across the post between the ends. Line up the inside of the bar or post at the 0 mark, and the straight barbell is 1 inch. That's it for this quick guide on how to measure the most popular types of body jewelry. If you need information on how to measure a piece of jewelry that we didn't cover, we have a super handy measuring guide on our site that shows you how to measure all of the different types of jewelry pieces. Also, when you look at products on our site, you'll see information on how to measure that piece of jewelry on the product page. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and follow us on all of our social platforms at Bodyartforms. Bye!